Everybody, welcome to the show.
Say
Woo!
Oh, yeah.
I'm Marijuana Man, and this is From Under the Seed Desk, formerly known as From Under the Influence, formerly known as The Grow Show. Joining me here, as always, on the couch is Al the Alchemist.
Hey, what's going on?
And today's a very special day in the house. It's our 10th anniversary of the very day we got raided here in 2005. Was it? 2005, something like that. So bunches of our friends are in the house here to help us commemorate that solemn yet joyous occasion.
Look at y'all still here. Woo.
We've also got camera left here, featuring Jeremiah and Rose, as always. And we've got another camera. Let's call it camera couch camera.
Couch cam.
David Malmo Levine, Dory's here. So is McMahon. I don't know if Tim's in that shot. He's probably not. So,
No.
yeah, Tim looks gorgeous today, by the way.
Yeah.
There we got him now. We got John and Vicky over there, and Dawn, and Carol's in the house, and Ann's with us
Wave
too.
hi,
So
everybody.
Corey's over there, and Bert's in the house. So
I saw Marc Emery earlier today.
we're thrilled that everybody's here. I don't know. Did we see that opening? Show opening? Here, we'll throw the show open up.
Do some throwback here. What date
throwback.
is this?
Huh?
What's this date? This date.
July 29th, 2005.
Here it
This
is.
is what was going on.
What have you been charged? Have you been charged?
Jail. Yes, I have been.
With, what are you being charged with?
This car's going to jail. To do something. To be euphoric. Marijuana. These guys are working for the United States.
Good afternoon. At the tone,
want
Pacific
that
Daylight
buzzer back?
Time will be 4:20 exactly.
So yeah, that was me. Footage of me getting arrested and put into the squad car that morning. As you'll notice, I'm wearing the same T-shirt as that day. Yeah, man. Fuck.
5 or 6 years ago now.
10 years ago.
10 years ago, Wayne?
10 years.
I have
That shirt's
T-shirts
10 years
older
old.
than
You guys should
that.
have like an anniversary party or something.
I gotta say, seeing that video, you haven't
That's
changed
what I
very
think.
much.
What do you think?
No, I
No.
haven't changed at all. I think I'm quite a bit more handsome than I used to be
You know.
then.
Just like
Okay.
wine.
I rarely walk with
Everybody.
my hands behind my back like that.
Yeah.
So whoever pointed the camera at me asked me if I'd been charged with anything. I said, yeah, with being euphoric. So fresh material every day. New jokes.
It is.
But yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise that day, I gotta say. You'd always knew. We'd been raided a few times and thrown in jail, so my life consisted of, in the morning, choosing what I was going to wear based on whether or not I'd have to sleep on the stuff. Birkenstocks don't make a good pillow, as it turns out. So,
Yeah.
so the reality certainly existed that that potential was there, and that morning it was. But this morning I was sitting at the seed desk, which we've relocated in the exact same place. So,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's like deja vu all over again.
it is.
Yeah,
It,
this week's gotta
it
be
absolutely
surreal.
is.
The seed desk found its way home.
Yeah. So I'm thrilled by that and having a blast being there. I want to thank Dylan. He's taken over the desk so we could do the show today. He's down there now. So main floor of Marc Emery's Cannabis Culture headquarters, 7 days a week. So come in and visit. Marc's there just about every day, and you can play with him and come buy some seeds anytime from me and the gang. But yeah, thrilled to be there. And 10 years ago, like, it's just too fucking crazy for me. It is a lot like yesterday. For me, that's for sure. Like the yeah, Dakine. Yeah, Don Brier's in the house. He's a major factor in marijuana being pushed to the limits here in Vancouver. David Malma-Levine, too. All the folks here in Vancouver. Now, there were other famous things, though, like I think Marc will probably join us a little later and fill us in on what was going on with him that day, but I don't know. I was sitting at the desk minding my own business.
What were you smoking that day?
Well, I don't know. I don't really remember.
10 years ago?
10 years ago.
Sweet
If I
stuff,
don't know,
maybe?
if it was only 9 years ago, I think I would have easily remembered what I was smoking. But that's what I've set my limit of memory at, is 10 years. But no, I don't know. Then somebody yelled out, "Don't anybody move, Vancouver police." And you're going, wow, what a stupid thing to say in our store. Like, you really shouldn't have. What a dumb joke, eh? And so you kind of look up and they just fucking swarm in, eh? And they didn't dive on me or anything, but they got 2 or 3 of them came and surrounded me. But then he pushed this piece of paper in my face that said that I was wanted for extradition to the United States. And you go, uh-oh, we're in fucking big trouble now.
Did they say, marijuana man, don't move?
No, but in some of the documents, I was AKA marijuana man. But no, they sat there and threw a video camera on me, handcuffs behind my back while I sat at the desk while they did a bunch of stuff in the store. And they videotaped me while I verbally abused them. So this morning...
Use any of it. It's just an hour and a half of expletives.
So this morning I phoned the VPD and asked if I could get a copy of the video for today's show. They said, who is this? And I hung up. So we won't get to see any of that, but...
Jodie in the house.
There's Jodie in the house. Yeah, we have room. Jodie owns the couches, so she gets a seat. Yeah, you own these couches.
I can do that.
So what's new, Jodie?
What's new? What's new is 10 years ago the DEA was here. Actually,
here.
probably right about this time almost. It was right around, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what time it was.
I have a feeling it was...
Felt like 10:30.
They did
No, you
not
know, it was
come in at
noon, It was earlier in
4:20.
the day.
It was early in the day,
It was
yeah.
early in the day because we had finished the magazine and it was off to print, and we were discussing how the printing process was going in Winnipeg, was where it was happening. And then the raid happened, and we were like, oh my gosh, the biggest, best seed catalog ever is rolling off the presses right now. We've got to stop the presses. So we called and we're like, hopefully you didn't print the seed catalog, since, you know, we don't want people ordering seeds when they get this issue. But it had printed, and we had to hire people to put a sticker on every single catalog of every single issue saying, do not order seeds rated by DEA. That's a pretty significant. Biggest, best seed catalog ever, too. We had just redone it. Look who's here. Marc Emery himself. Yay.
Himself's in the house. Nice. Well, there's...
Oh, I did, yeah. Yeah, everything's good.
We're just...
I had a meeting. I just have to wait a week for an update.
just now recounting the the course of events on that day 10 years ago. You were in Halifax.
Yeah, Lawrencetown.
Lawrence.
Actually, I was just about to give a speech to the Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, and I went into the restaurant, the only restaurant that's in Lawrencetown. And when I went in, it was full. And then I noticed, later on I recalled someone came in, spoke to the waitress, and slowly but surely the place emptied out. Like within 20 minutes, and it's lunch hour, and it's the only place in town, right? And the waitress came up and she looked irritated to serve me. And I said, I'd like a salad. When she brought me the salad, I said, this is done wrong. Right? And she looked really flustered that I was going to send it back. Right? So I did send it back. I said, because this is like totally not right. And what it is, they're all nervous now because they've been told something's going to happen. And sure enough, I leave and finally close, and the restaurant now is inexplicably dead empty. And I go across the street, and I notice there's a car parked in front of my car, my rental car, and one parked behind it. And as I approach the door, people get out of those cars, and that actually 3 more cars come right up behind me and corner me in, right? And the guys are huge, and they're all wearing Kevlar jackets, which is very unusual because I have nothing on me, right? So, and I remember this part happening in slow motion. So when I look at him, he says, "Are you Marc Emery?" I say, "Yes, I am." He says, "Well, you're under arrest." And he hands me the warrant, and it says Marc Scott Emery, a.k.a. the Prince of Pot. Now, that's not good. When you see the a.k.a., this, I felt maybe I'm a bad person now because only bad people have a.k.a. known as, right?
That's right.
So, anyway, and so he hands it to me, and I see Kevlar jacket. There's 8 police officers around me, 5 cars, and they're all armed, and they're all looking ready for danger.
This is before anything here.
Yeah, this is 4.5 hours earlier. So at noon hour, it's only about 7:30 here. So I get arrested, and I remember it all happened in slow motion when I read the words for wanted for extradition to the United States of America.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's so bad.
Yeah, that's
right?
what I thought
but
too.
then I thought, but you know what? And these are times sometimes I like. I regard it was out of my hands. So as soon as it's out of my hands, they handcuff me, they put me in the thing, and I fall asleep. And I fall asleep all the way to Halifax, 2.5, 3 hours. They actually said they'd never arrested anybody who just fell asleep. I said, I always fall asleep when I'm arrested because I usually get put in a cell. And so you just fall asleep. And because nothing I can do now, so there's no point in going away.
420.
Happy 420.
And at that note, that's when I got woken up in the police car by frantic sounding calls on my cell phone, which they'd put in the glove cover. Yeah, dun, 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 and it went on, and it was Jodie saying, "Marc, we're being raided," and I thought, I know you're being raided. And actually, when they arrested me, they say you are entitled to an attorney, but not until the conclusion of this investigation. So they had to arrest everybody here. So that's the moment I wish I had a cell phone 10 seconds before. Look out, guys, they're coming, right?
Wow.
Now, as it turns out, they didn't really get anything anyway. They never got our seeds. Right, so they didn't end up seizing anything of value.
No, they just wanted to seize you.
Yeah. Well, so anyway,
much.
so I spent the next week in 4 different jails, as you spent in a couple. I end up in North Fraser, opposite you. But I went to Halifax jail, then Dalhousie jail, and then the overnight lockup here, that horrible place that Vancouver
downtown
has, and then North Fraser pretrial.
North Fraser, yeah. So... yeah, that was a big moment when they pushed that paper in front of you with the extradition word to the United States.
I've been in a total of 10 jails and prisons as a result of that charge. 4 in Canada, getting arrested, and then the 6 in the United States that I went to in the 4.5 years.
Oh, that's right. Holy cow.
I remember, I'm going to share Michelle's story since she's not here to share it, but I remember getting a phone call from her saying, I'm at my apartment, and there are DEA and VPD agents knocking on the door, and she said, the first thing she said was, Jodie, I'm down. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I'm down. I'm laying down. I'm laying down on the patio because they're at the door. I'm just laying flat on my balcony. What's going on? And I'm like, yeah, we're being raided. So she just waited, and they left, and then called her and left a voice message saying, turn yourself in. But she was at her apartment hiding on the balcony, laying flat, just whispering in the phone, oh my God, I'm down. I'm hiding. What's going on? And it was like, man, a lot's going on. That was quite the day, because I remember we were up in the office in Cannabis Culture in the Dominion building. And I always tell people, I remember it felt like a perfect day, like we were sitting back with our feet up, just like, oh, it's awesome, the best magazine ever. Cannabis Culture's Toker's Bowl had just happened. Toker's Bowl was perfect. It was awesome. Everything is awesome. That's what it felt like that day. And then Chris Bennett comes in to the office and says, we're being raided by the DEA. And the first thing that our awesome did is said, get the computers and let's take the stairs because they're going to be using the elevators. So we all go down the stairs as they're going up the elevators because we knew they'd be coming to the office. It was like a lot of people sprung into action that day. And we came out here and the police were just papering up the windows. And I think Heidi and people were out front all dressed up for the Motley Crue concert that night. They were all punked out, rock and roll. And even, everybody was all ready for a great day. And then suddenly it was surreal, though. I think it was just so surreal to all of Canada.
Well, I felt like Marc did once they handcuffed me and this was going on. It was out of my hands, so you kind of just go through the motions or whatever they... I thought I was going to the United States right away, that I was getting in that car, we were going to Seattle. But luckily, the Canadian Constitution doesn't allow for that, and they got to go through due process here before they can get you, which turned out to take 4 years.
You know, I often think that we have challenges ahead now, like what are we going to do with the lounges? What if they close the lounge? What if, et cetera, et cetera. What if we have 100 dispensaries all selling bongs? So the daily things. But I remember in those days we had a real panic because in order to pay the bail, which was 30 grand cash, 10,000 each one of us, and in order to pay John Conroy, and he's pricey, as well as that, we needed to pillage our bank accounts, of which we had no money available for that. Some of the things that happened, we were a month and a half late paying for the magazine that month because we had to put individual on all 60,000 copies stickers that said do not order seeds from this catalog, right? DEA Raid. And that took like 4 weeks and we couldn't pay for it. And so we fell behind for years and paid.
The magazine, even, we had money to pay for the magazine, but we used that for bail, so the printing company kind of didn't get paid.
and all the other things that come from that, too. We had to stop selling seeds, which was like left us in a real... Because none of our other businesses made any money.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So they were all reliant on the seed business, along with so many other things, right?
It ground to a halt there for...
And ultimately, the magazine had to be canceled in 2009 because I couldn't afford someone to take over. So when I say I got through it, I'm not really caring about what happened to me. It's what happened to our good institutions that we lost because we couldn't carry on, like the magazine, right? And all the money we used to spend on pot TV. We spent $1 million on pot TV in its first 6 years. We were easily the world's pioneer in video in those years before YouTube and Flash.
Yeah,
right?
Nobody was doing it.
But all those things came to a halt when we got raided. So I kind of reminisce about some of the things we don't have, like the magazine. Now, it's maybe just as well. There seem to be a lot of magazines, and I do know people don't read magazines anymore. We've stopped selling them. That's a metamorphosis. And the revolution was started by magazines like High Times and Cannabis Culture, and now our movement has gotten so that people are on screens all the time. People don't pick up these magazines.
But that's kind of a good thing because, let's think about how much has happened. The seeds, let's remind all the viewers who may not know, but where's the model place for marijuana right now? It's probably Colorado. Like, everyone looks to Colorado. There's a lot of pot, there's a lot of tax revenue, a lot of good things. Well, seed money helped Colorado get medical marijuana legal so they could grow all those plants. Mason Tvert, he was a protege of here. He was a big fan and came up with his mom and met Marc and was like, this is amazing, I want to be an activist, and went and did great things, helped legalize pot in Colorado. And so all these people that carried out the seeds and the money, one of the things I remember that first happened is we wanted to get a list of all the people who received money because, as the DEA documents show, they traced over $2 million alone through Western Union money transfers, and they admit it all went to political activists. Go to my Twitter account. I shared the documents today, twitter.com/Jodie Emery. You can see it. It's pretty interesting. They blacked out my name. It's Geese Ramsey is what it says there, but they blacked me out then. But they were doing investigating. They found where all the money went. It all did go to political activities and campaigns, which have led to where we are today through a lot of people doing that work. So even though there are some losses, I feel like the gains are so much more significant. I think there are a lot of people out there who do remember what happened. I'll confess, at a conference recently, I asked a crowd of 200, how many of you remember that day, July 29, 2005? And maybe 10 people put up their hand. And for me, it kind of that made me a little sad, but then I started also feeling like, you kids back in my day. And it's wow, am I really was that far, how far along we've come? But what I want to point out that most people forget is how Canadians were really offended by that. As a Canadian, apart from the seeds and the weed and all this and that, even to this day, Mark and I get stopped by, I'm going to say, more older Canadians who say, listen, that pissed me off and I'm still mad. And you can see the rage because that was when Canadian sovereignty really began to be violated on a visible scale. And we see it in so many ways today, continuing onward. But that was offensive to a lot of people, and it's still offensive. And just a reminder that Harper's government might have an early election. He asked to go call for that today. He's going to meet with the Governor General. So get out and vote and punish this government for all the harm they've done in the time since the raid. But let's also celebrate all the fun stuff like that we're sitting here.
He's going to ask to have the election yesterday.
Yeah. It already happened. We missed it.
See
It's a conservative
if
government.
we can get that through.
Can we have the election?
Yeah, crazy times it was. Off we went to North Fraser, and there was some bizarre things that happened to me in there. One of them was, Mark and I had to come into a bail hearing one day, and we were denied bail, and I'd like to point out that Tim is my savior in that respect. He put up his fucking house to get me out, but we were denied bail that particular day, and we had to go back to the lockup. And when we were in court, an artist did those court pictures of you and I, and so I phoned the court today and asked them if I could get copies of those pictures, and they said, "Who is this?" I hung up. But when we got back to lockup, the other guys in my unit recognized me now from having seen me on TV, right? So it was a whole different trip now. They all met me at the door kind of thing. The whole cell block, right? Going, holy fuck, I can't believe, blah, blah, this is going on. And they had actually cooked me dinner, which was a big deal. They didn't give you the
traditional bag lunch of bologna and butter?
No, they had cooked a special casserole.
Oh, you think you got status? Yeah. Get yourself called one of the 50 most wanted in the world. And actually, everybody's really respectful, right? I was called one of the 50 most wanted in the world according to Attorney General drug trafficking. Well, considering how many murderous cartel lords there are, right? I even bumped out some of them, right? But, we got wonderful support in jail. Not only did I get 7,500 letters, and Jodie visited me a total 11 months of her life visiting me, either traveling or being beside me.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, it's 164 days of travel in all that time and 161 days of visiting. And that turns out to be 11 months in total out of that 4.5 years.
That's amazing.
But now that Snoop Dogg gave me a shout out last year, and that was so much fun because, any prison I'm in that's Bureau of Prisons is going to be 65% black guys, right? Now, they were always great to me anyway, for the most part. I mean, I never had an unkind word said to me, really, when it gets down to it. But when Snoop Dogg says, "Keep your chin up, nigga," to me on the radio and in subsequent social media, you can't get a better endorsement in a prison than Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa giving you a shout out. So
serious cred. That's great.
So those things all, and of course I looked the most un-hip hop guy in that prison, right? I mean, even all the white guys are Southern crackers. They were a little more in tune with the contemporary rap than I was, right? So
yeah, that's a funny moment in the whole story, that's for sure. Yeah, video is Snoop Dogg.
And I thank Ryan for introducing Wiz Khalifa, giving him his free Marc jersey to Wiz Khalifa, which he subsequently wears in a video with Juicy J called No Better.
Oh, is that
right? And then he starts hanging around with Snoop, and he tells Snoop all about me. So that's how Snoop Dogg gave me that shout out. So you never know how you're going to influence people. So I'm permanently in Ryan's debt.
That's pretty cool.
But I'd also like to think, because there are viewers out there, and there are people here, and there are people everywhere that aren't watching and won't ever see this, but, we are only here today, 10 years later, because of the support of people who got us through it.
That's for sure.
It's a full moon. If I cry, that's the reason. But no, seriously, that was a very difficult, hard time, and there's no way we could have done it without... Okay,
Dana Larson, who was absolutely incredible, sent me hundreds of books, lots of money, and was always there. Okay, next you go to something.
Oh, we can't. And I'm not even going to try and name people. No, there are so many people, but there's also nameless people. No, listen.
Fundraisers every year for me.
We could go on and on. There's no way we could possibly thank all 7,000 letter writers that you got and all the others who did stuff. Even people.
How about Len Preslesnik, who sent me a letter every day for 4.5 years? Not just a letter. The guy put reprints of books, biographies, cartoons, magazines he was reading at the library. He would go to the library every day for 3 or 4 hours on his disability pension, scan all the new arrivals, photocopy the good stuff, and send it to me every day.
Wow.
For like 1,600 letters. The guy's he spent like $1,000 in postage alone.
That's stunning.
As for postage, I just need to remind people that the only reason Marc had email and phone calls and everything else was because I sent him money that people spent here at this business that I earn a paycheck from to pay for everything he needed. And people sent money on their own. People sent books and all that on their own. And there's no way we could have gotten through without that.
There's a couple in Massachusetts that sent 1,000 books to the prison I was at. There was the all-immigrant prison, and there were no books in Spanish, so they went on Amazon and bought every kind of Spanish classic book between 1 cent and $3.99 and ordered it. And so the prison was flooded with hundreds of books showing up. Eventually the prison stops this. But I end up appealing, all sorts of people wanted to help out, and I thought of all sorts of cool ways. I want to tell you one day about when I was the lawyer for that prison. And I had a lineup every day of people to do their custody work or their immigration forms or their grievances. Now, eventually, I'm so good at the grievances, I get 3 people sort of fired, including the priest to the prison who's an idiot. But then they they take me out of the law library and put me on trash detail as a way of like, all right, that's it. You've outlived your usefulness.
How did you change their world with the trash? I'll bet you did.
Well, here's the thing. I wasn't allowed to do legal advice in my spare time. So if I was not in the library and under authority to give legal advice, I couldn't give other prisoners legal advice, right?
Oh,
this was the theory. Of course, I kept doing it 24 hours a day, but, you know.
No, it was...
I have some memories of that day, too. I wasn't actually here when the raid went down, but someone called me and I came. And I tried to organize cadres of people to sit in the middle of each of the blocks of the back alley block and block traffic from getting out. They arrested us and threw us in a paddy wagon quite quickly because we didn't have enough manpower to do that successfully. But I think Dan Magnuson, Neil's son Dan, was thrown in the paddy wagon with me, I think without even cuffs on, and we were smoking his weed in the back of the paddy wagon. And then just this July 1st, Neil and I were in the same paddy wagon, and then he put his cuffs on improperly, and I was smoking joints with now the father in a different paddy wagon on a different occasion. But yeah, the cops will figure out those cuffs sooner or later. The other thing I wanted to say was if Bob High was here, I think it may have been this raid. I don't know whether it's this raid or another raid. But on one of the raids, he threw all the seeds inside a hidey hole and just pretended to be a customer and fooled them. And they let him out and saved like $30,000 or $40,000 worth of stock that way. So the police aren't infallible, and during raids, things can be done to save the money and the product. So if you're involved in cannabis activism, always create as many hidey holes as you can, and they usually work.
In fact, I sell stash cans.
That's right. We sell stash cans here. And those, I have used Marc Emery stash cans in successful raids on numerous occasions, and they work. Either the cops are sympathetic or incompetent. One or the other, probably a little combination of both. But yes, these things work, and there's no need to give up your capital in a raid. Just open up the next day, just like Marc Emery always did, and they'll just eventually run out of steam.
Or your bail conditions will simply bar you from the neighborhood. I would like to say that, David, you've gone to jail a number of times, and you've even been sentenced to 6 months. You did a 4-month term. And there aren't many people in this room that have actually gone to jail, as part of this kind of revolutionary activism. There's a few people in here. But there's one person who's gone to jail longer than me, and I want to acknowledge that. That's Don Briere, of the famous now of the Weeds chain, but also beloved for Dakine. Dakine kind of pioneered the original butter vaporizer, loungy, selling weed, kind of anybody who needs it kind of thing. And that was a wonderful thing. Alas, Don did it when he was on parole, and so consequently got
What
extra
year was
time
that, Don?
when you got busted. Yeah, but Don's done over 7 years in
like
federal in prisons total. So,
like
hey, Don,
Furrows-
I want to acknowledge that and shout that out to you, and wish you all the best of luck in these currently wild times before us as Vancouver tries this weird prohibition through regulation. Oddball.
Well, I
thing.
got to say, a lot of people sitting in this room are responsible for what's going on right now in this city, with the exception of a few who are absent. But yeah, hardcore group of activists here are keeping it out there.
I also want to say that, and this is a kind of an awkward thing to say, in our last years, Michelle and I weren't the closest of friends. You know, after being so close for many years, and then having after we got busted, there was just no money around. There was no money around for years, as it turns out. Yeah. So we more or less went our own way in various things. But one of the things I was happy to know is that Michelle never spent any time in jail, because she was ill much of the time after the raid.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And one of the perhaps the most touching thing that happened to me in prison, and you see a lot of life in a prison, was when I called up and Michelle's celebration of life was being held the day after her death. And I called in and we spoke about our fond moments and all the good times with Michelle. And, you know, that's kind of all I remember with Michelle, too, is all the fun times. Man, we had some incredible times. The parties at Thornby Island when we all lived on the Sunshine Coast, because they'd banished me there for a few years, the city had. And Michelle's Tokers Bowls and all the people she rounded up for the seeds, and how happy and pleased she was being in that position, too, and how she got to meet everybody. And
even to this day at Idea City, people keep saying, she helped me with microphones. And
No,
it's unfortunate in person that Michelle and I weren't on good terms. But I was glad to be able to at least participate in that event and think about the good times.
Oh, absolutely. And there's no reason to think of anything but. And there were lots of good times. And they continue today, of course. Yeah, the raid shook us up pretty good. But I'll tell you, if everybody comes scrambling back as soon as we could, right? Eventually they let us out on bail, with the stupidest conditions you can possibly imagine. Marc and I were not allowed to associate with each other or Michelle, except here. That's right. The very place where we committed the crime. Is the only place you can beat it. Oh, they went, we got that wrong. And no cell phones. You couldn't have a cell phone.
And that got me arrested one day, too.
Yeah, I remember that.
A cop stops me in a vehicle and says, "Who's that person?" I said, "That's Candy Cooper's purse." He says, "What's in it?" I said, "I don't know what's in it." He says, "Well, why don't you take a look?" So I brought it over, opened it up, and grabbed her phone first, and he says, "You're under arrest. You're in possession of a cell phone." I said, "But you told me to take a look and look what was in it." He said, "No, I didn't. I asked you if you wanted to take a look." And I thought, "Oh, really?"
This was the weirdest thing, was because I'm at home. Barry and Candy were passed out at their hotel because they were being sensible. They weren't driving. They left their vehicle, had their fun recreational substance enjoyment, went to their hotel, and Marc was driving the vehicle back. And because it had Washington plates and the lights weren't on, that's why he got pulled over. But I'm at home, and about an hour goes by, and again, Marc's not allowed a cell phone. And I'm at home waiting, and I'm like, this is very unusual. He should be back by now. An hour and a half goes by, and I'm like, this is not right. And I'm getting on my shoes and everything, thinking maybe he got hit by a car. I don't know, maybe something. Where is he? I'm going to go down to the store and check at the parking lot where the vehicle was. And I get this call from an unknown number. And I answer, and they say, "Is this Jodie? Jodie," I guess I was Geese Ramsey then. Was I? No, I was Emery. Yeah, they said, "Is this Jodie Emery?" I said, "Yeah." And who's this? They go, "This is the transit police." Nobody had heard of the transit police before, and I thought that meant Marc had been hit by a bus. I'm not kidding. I thought, oh my God, it's the cops who come out when buses hit people. I don't know. And they say, "We have your husband." And I said, "What do you mean? Is he okay?" And he says, what is your husband doing right now? I'm like, I don't know. He's out supposed to be taking his car. Who are you? What's going on? And they would not tell me anything. They wouldn't give me any answers. So I was so freaked out. And they said, well, get in touch with you. And they hung up. It's an unknown number. I go on the internet. I type in transit police. I get some department where they're like, oh, well, you know, if he's being detained, then that would be the police department. You need to call them. And I'm saying, but they said transit police. Who are the transit police? And as we know now, they're like an extra militarized police force here in Vancouver. But they had kidnapped Marc, basically. They wouldn't tell me. So finally, I get a call about an hour later from Candy and Barry Cooper going, what the hell is happening? The hotel manager woke us up and said the police have Marc and our vehicle. What? So, transit police, I don't like you. Cell phone bail, stupid rule. But man, we have some other crazy, weird stories during that time, like when we accidentally drove into America, or almost. It was weird. It was in Jeremiah. That's a weird. Can I share that one? I'm going to hog the airtime because I got to share that story. I want to. Well, the show's not ending. Not that I'm aware of. I figure it's going a little long. The food's not here yet. We do have some snacks coming, but...
No, we can go all day.
We could go all day, but I was just saying how thank goodness Marc didn't end up in America when we accidentally drove across the border when the road takes you directly there instead of the parking lot exit. Anyway, that's a short story.
And all sorts of odd things happen. Like Ian Donaldson, my lawyer, getting like near death and they're not being able to file the paperwork, so I get let out on bail rather than get sent to the United States the first time. Right? So in 2009, so then I got, and I probably should have just gone then. It was actually a mistake to delay that because I'd have gotten out 8 months earlier. Instead, though, I did get the Olympics, but I knew I was going to be extradited all that time. So it was kind of like being in prison of sorts, but not getting any credit for it. So, you know.
Yeah, it went on for years and years. We went to court. Every time I had to go to court, it was too early. The store wasn't open yet, so I had to come straight from home. So I was always carrying weed with me, and I'd stash it in the flower pot out front of the courthouse every time. And
well, I will say this. One thing I regret about it all is I can't go to the United States. And it's not like there's physically anything in the United States I need to see, but there's all those people to talk to. And I figure it's an American's violation of their rights to speak freely associate with me. Right, because if the American citizens were to choose, many of them, millions of them, would associate with me and come and hear me speak, and we could talk politics and what have you. So, I miss not being able to go to the United States and do that.
Yeah, me too. I'd be wonderful to go to Colorado and to Washington and Oregon now and enjoy the legal marijuana.
That's the difference between you and I, though. I want to go to Alabama and Georgia and cause trouble, right? I mean, that's what we want. You know, when I was in Ireland, I said, listen, if you guys are going to carry a plant each to the parliament, I'll do that with you. I'd love to be expelled from Ireland under that pretense, right?
But, you know what, I think Obama might have some tricks up his sleeve. I think there is a chance that people like yourselves might be allowed back into the United States, maybe.
I got a feeling that potential exists with both countries potentially legalizing it around the board.
Yeah.
Canada, it'd be interesting because if Justin Trudeau gets elected or when he does and comes through with his promise to legalize marijuana, that's a federal thing. So border to border, it's legal.
Yeah.
So that's right across America, too. So they'll scramble to keep up across the border at least, and off it'll go.
And 2016, you know, New York, the United Nations is gathering in New York next year to discuss ending marijuana prohibition and the war on drugs and how that's all happening. And so Obama's already made some significant strides. You know, he's the first president. He's also carried out more enforcement. I know, all the bad, say all the bad you want. But the good is that he went and visited a federal prison. And I've been to a federal prison in America, in Mississippi. And if he saw what I saw, there's no way to not be moved by that. So I really am impressed with Obama taking these steps. And they're also introducing more reform and not sending. There's so much good happening. And I'm so proud that 10 years after the DEA came in here and said, this is a significant blow to the legalization movement. No, it wasn't. It was a significant boost. Everything already took off. The seeds were planted. That's the funny thing about seeds. They go underneath the ground and you don't think anything's happening. And then bam, too late. We win in many ways.
Well, and that was interesting, too, because when I'm being sentenced, see, I'm really proud of what I did, and the judge knew that. He didn't actually ask me to apologize. I had to apologize for being so arrogant, but not for my crimes, because he already knew I was proud of that. But when my lawyer and their lawyer had a debate about the seriousness, because the district attorney says this is the most egregious, large amount of marijuana being produced in the history of the United States in the American criminal justice system, Your Honor. So, this guy is deserving of it. And my lawyer gets up and said, listen, of those 3 million seeds, which they claim were several tons every year into the future being produced, when he said 3 million seeds, Your Honor, is the record largest number. And my lawyer says, yeah, but half of those wouldn't have germinated and another half would have been male. So we're talking 750,000 at the most, Your Honor. And I thought, well, both of those are 28 years to life, right? So this was going to be bad, right? But eventually it comes down, and in fact, they found that 3 million seeds weighed 247 kilos, which is a mandatory minimum of 5 years. And that's what I was officially convicted of, is 247 kilos of marijuana seeds. Because that's a 5-year mandatory minimum in the federal system, right? But
wow,
if it was insisted that I get the 750,000 to 3 million plants, then that's definitely 28 years to life, and that's what they started out
That's a death penalty, isn't it, Mark?
Well, 60 times over, yeah. More than 60,000 plants is a death penalty in the United States. But they couldn't extradite if they wanted to give me the death penalty.
Well,
so,
can I just say a couple of things? I got to leave, so I got to run, but I'll hand the mic to Chris Bennett, who just walked in. But before I hand the mic to Chris, I'd like to say a couple of things on the topic of voting with your whole being and sacrificing yourself, putting yourself in jail to make a point. I think Thoreau said it best. He said, vote with your whole being, not just a strip of paper. Vote with your whole influence. And I think that's what we do when we go to jail or risk jail. And I just wanted to also share with you my impression of the old activists talking about the technology of yesterday, because I thought that was kind of funny hearing that. And back in my day, we had broadsheets, and we used to have movable type, and we got the word out with these broadsheets. But, you got to embrace the tweets and the twits and all that sort of thing nowadays, because you speak with the language and the tools of the day. And here's Chris Bennett. He'll tell you more about that.
I remember the day,
I remember the video of the day we were raided. Chris Bennett was out on the sidewalk.
I was working down at Pot TV, arguing with our old landlord there that we had a problem with, and these two dudes come down.
These two dudes.
And they go, hey, get off the phone. And I'm like, who the F are you, man? And they're like, another guy comes down with a camera. He's got a DEA thing on it. I'm just like, what the hell is the DEA doing here? We never even really considered that we were going to get raided by U.S. forces here in Canada, And they're filming me, and I wish I could get this video, because this video is even better than the outside video. And they come in, and I'm like, they're filming me, and I go like, am I under arrest? And I just bought like a big sack of weed, so I had a huge sack of weed in my back pocket. And I go, if I'm not under arrest, I want to get the F out of here right now. And they look at each other, and then they grab me, and they walk me outside. And there's a cop car out the back alley, and I think I'm going into that. And they just dropped me there, so I just went right up to Cannabis Culture headquarters in the building on the corner and said, we're being raided, and started calling people for a protest, So it was a pretty intense time, and yeah, what a sellout. Nobody really saw, we were fighting for legalization in Canada, and we never thought we'd end up on the doorstep of the American White House, I think is how we played it wrong. We thought we were just dealing with our own country and our own laws and stuff like that, but it became pretty clear at that time, at least, that the U.S. was setting Canadian drug policy. I think it's a different story today, though. I think that any country, Canada, whoever, could do whatever they want, and the U.S. isn't going to threaten to close the borders and trade sanctions like the Bush administration does, at least for now. You know what I mean? If Jeb Bush gets in next year, it'll be back to the old tricks, that's for sure.
And there's
Mark.
Chris, you had a story you always shared that I thought was such a beautiful visual of, Uncle Sam ingesting marijuana in the form of Marc Emery in a way. Like, what is this vision? Like, I don't know. I think it's kind of neat.
No, for sure. You know, it was like they were worried. They were like focused on Canada. The issues of gay marriage, marijuana legalization were pivotal issues at that time, largely because of the Christian right and the American government. And they saw Canada as kind of setting a trend in that way, in a big way. And were worried about the effects of Canada legalizing, how that could affect the United States. And they took Marc Emery down there, and in that sense, they brought that whole energy and movement that was happening here into the United States, and they ingested him and they put him in there while Marc was in jail. Sure enough, the whole country started getting high, and by the time he was out of jail, states had legalized marijuana, and a trend had started that just can't be stopped.
Yeah, as those seeds planted, Marc's own prosecutor, John McKay, and your prosecutor, Michelle's. He came around, kind of. Fully, actually.
Yeah, I went on Wikipedia today, looked him up, the prosecutor from Washington State, John McKay, celebrated man from a fucking magic family, and it also mentions that he's famous for having arrested Marc Emery, a Canadian marijuana activist, and he shortly thereafterwards actually got fired from his position for standing up for the right thing against the Bush fucking Republicans. Yeah. But at any rate, then he came out and stood up for the legalization of marijuana, and one day stood beside Jodie.
He pulled out a chair for me on a stage beside BC's former Attorney General and Dr. Evan Wood, the celebrated HIV doctor. I mean, I had a press conference with Stop the Violence BC, and John McKay, yes, the prosecutor, came up and agreed to do a press conference that made national attention, because here was Marc's own guy. But, I think we should always celebrate those who join our side, because it's definitely worked in our favor. And to see that Washington State, it's not perfect and there are a lot of problems, but there's always a lot of problems, so that's life. But Washington State joining with Colorado in the first round, I think, was really pivotal to have 2 states, and now it's 5, and there's only going to be more and more. And I really personally love the idea that you guys sent seeds, like you guys sent those seeds that are growing that cannabis that's being used today to treat children with epilepsy, and there's so much strain variety, and that was really significant. And with respect to any plants,
I think it was too. Yeah,
the variety Americans couldn't get. Sure, they're growing weed and they can get Mexican swag, but there's no way they're getting the genetic variety. And to have a seed catalog show up in a magazine that says, "Buy seeds, read our political articles, know that your money is funding reform, and grow these seeds.
And actually get your seeds.
Get your seeds. Get your medicine. Grow your own. I mean, you guys plant the seeds of freedom, overgrow the government. It really, truly happened, and that's just, I don't know, it's magical.
So many customers from Oregon. Some days at the seed desk, you could actually say, "So, what part of Oregon you from?"
Chris mentioned when the DEA landing on our doorstep. What about the time when you guys were heckling John Walters here?
Well, that's directly related. That's the pivotal moment. When Marc rented.
That was one of those ideas that part of me says, when they say, "Would you do anything over again?" I really wonder if that was the most pivotal thing I ever did to agitate the U.S. government, was mock John Walters, ruin his night in front of all the cops, all the politicians on national TV, and I felt so great that night. I knew something bad would come of it, because I said, no, I'm feeling too high. Just like when I bought those full-page ads, when the APEC people were all here, every heads of state was there, and all their lackeys and minions and ministers, and the newspaper said, "Marc, there's going to be an edition of the Vancouver Sun that's going to go to every single one of these people in this delegation for every country in the Pacific." Alarming. And so we bought a full-page ad.
Raid.
All right. And normally that's my ride, but
David Mama Levine breaking in.
No one's supposed to open that door. No, it's just it's all good. It's all good.
What did he do?
It's just a door.
Where was I in the story?
Where were you in what story?
Talking about John Walters that night.
Well, and we mocked him, and it was an awesome evening that we bought a table for 10 of us, right, at a Board of Trade dinner, which we weren't supposed to be able to buy, but they weren't really looking.
You bought it under another corporate name.
Yeah, $500 for 10 people, $50 each. And the cops, Vancouver police, had brought like 3 tables. The mayor was there. He wasn't buying into it, but he was there out of courtesy. And then there were ministers and a whole bunch of like right-wing types. Well, anyway, so that was one thing. And then when we bought a full-page ad in the APEC, that every leader of every government saw an ad questioning why each country had such a terrible policy on marijuana and their human rights, right beside ads for Boeing and then FedEx and stuff like that, and we're calling them out, right? And I invited them all to come down and get high with me to find out that marijuana was harmless and that you were needlessly persecuting your people and arresting them. And I think the Canadian government was so embarrassed about that led to our raid a month later, right? So all the different things. When I was on CNN, I was warned that could bring a reaction. We got raided. And when I was on the first time I got raided was when I was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And the guy who wrote the article said, listen, the White House reads this paper. You're going to get blowback. And that's the first time I even heard that word. You're going to get blowback when this shows up. He said, so I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you ready for that blowback, right? Because he said it could be anything. Right? For the first 4 weeks, it was fabulous amount of business. And then at the end of 4 weeks is the biggest raid ever, right? So we lost everything for a while.
We should acknowledge that the Vancouver police cooperated fully at that time in this campaign against you guys with the enemy.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to thank the Vancouver police for not being harsh up until recently. But I do hope that after 10 years since the DEA raid, the Vancouver police won't give us any grief here. I just hope that the police won't give anybody any grief anywhere. I hope the police won't be enforcing too many laws at the city's request or anything. I really am concerned about this crackdown the cops seem to be having.
$250 fine tickets at the beach now if you're smoking a joint there. So now it's gotten so that you can't legally smoke in a lot of residences in Vancouver. You can't smoke at the beach. You can't smoke in parks. You can't smoke in a lounge. It would appear that there's actually some people who may not be able to legally smoke anywhere. On earth in this country, right? That because your landlord, he doesn't have to call the police to say he needs to evict you because of the smell. Right? If he determines that your smell is offensive to other people and he gives you 2 warnings, then they can cancel your residency terms. So, there are a lot of people that cannot smoke pot legally anywhere now. And that's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, they've opened the floodgate to stop us at every fucking corner here with this semi-legalization.
Well, and here's the thing about the police and this permit that we require. The permit is just a way for the police to get money. See, if the police get money, they'll be nice to you. But now we have bicycle events being canceled because the police, instead of the old days like with us, they just cooperate and do their thing. Now they want $5,000 to be paid to them in a permit fee so the police can monitor it, which they used to do for free, which is what they want us to buy a permit for so that we can pay for the policing we don't want. And that's what's happening throughout this. But see, Vancouver is going in a very corporate, bureaucratized way. The politicians are just admitting they're overwhelmed, they're not smart enough, adept enough, or have enough hours in the day to actually pay attention to everything. So what they do is they surrender it over to city managers because they have billions of dollars to spend. So it's a lot easier to spend a lot of money of the taxpayers on all these geniuses to do your work for you rather than you do it as a single elected politician of one of 11. Right? 11 people are supposed to be responsible. This can't be done. No. So they can listen to us all they want, but they're basically leaving it in the hands of city managers. And the ones we've got now are not brought up here. They're not from Vancouver. They're all out-of-towners brought in with foreigner values and outsider values. And if they'd have lived here for 40 years, they'd understand that this is a pot city. This city was built on marijuana. It continues to survive. And by the way, we're in a recession. I have absolutely no doubt about it, that we're in for a couple of years of rough economic weather. And that's why Harper wants to call an election even earlier, because it's only going to get worse the longer we delay to an election. Yeah. So, but that is what keeps us. Can you imagine how much money must be spent if we have 100 dispensaries operating 7 days a week in this Vancouver, and yet no one else in the Lower Mainland has any of them? how much money must be coming into the city of Vancouver for marijuana that is creating even a false level of prosperity that won't exist in Maple Ridge and all these other places across British Columbia. Yeah, exactly. So I think that basically they could kill the golden goose here, because you don't want to chase that money to other jurisdictions. Vancouver should always be the #1 marijuana city in Canada in the Pacific Northwest. Our economy and our prosperity here is built around that. And people are foolish because we're entering into a recession. Oil is tanking. Our dollar is tanking. Food this winter is going to be outrageously expensive from the United States.
Get that way now.
Yeah.
You know what,
So we're in for a fair bit of economic trouble, both personally, perhaps, if they close lounges or throw, I don't know how you sign a lease when the city can say, no, you can't have your dispensary after all. I don't know what you're going to do, but you have to void all your agreements you made with employees.
Peaceful civil disobedience then, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to stay here and stay open with our lounge. We want to make sure that this place has always fought for the rights of the things that weren't allowed,
Until you can't, though.
When some of these dispensaries get closed, I'm curious to see how long the same properties remain vacant. Because they were vacant, a lot of them were vacant a long, long time before anyone came and rented them and set up a dispensary and became a good, regularly on-time paying tenant.
What a lot of people aren't taking into consideration is 100 dispensaries is at least 1,000 jobs. 1,000 jobs in any middle class market. 1,000 jobs is that's a lot. That's a huge dent, and that's just immediate. That's not including the people that are risking their ass to supply the dispensaries, the families that they have, all of that. It's like thousands of people.
Colorado alone made 10,000 jobs out of legalization. 10,000 jobs. Now, I keep hearing in the news the LNG, the liquefied natural gas fracking that our provincial government keeps pushing for. It's like 2,000, 3,000 temporary jobs, maybe 300 permanent jobs. That's a 25-year deal they just gave to the government of Malaysia. And meanwhile, THC, not LNG, could make 10,000 jobs at least, and that's a homegrown economy. It's already here. We can do it without impacting the environment in a negative way. We've got the geniuses and the BC Bud and the global reputation, and 10,000 jobs is a drop in the bucket, and we should be doing that. So this federal election campaign, I really want people to go out there and say, legalization is job creation. We should be chanting that in the streets. Legalization is job creation, absolutely.
Because you're going to see unemployment rise.
Jody.
You're going to see unemployment rise, and you're going to see our dollar continue to stay low, and we'll have difficulties. So whenever we have resource problems in Canada, people grow weed. You bet they're going to be growing a lot more weed in Fort McMurray than they've ever grown before. Because they're certainly not going to be harvesting oil. And yet they've got these big houses that are no longer worth anywhere near what they paid for them, so you're going to have to fill that house with pot. Right? So you're going to see a lot more pot being grown as people get more incentive to grow it.
Oh, absolutely.
Since the 70s, cannabis has been hovering around $2,000 a pound, and it's stable. It's more stable than silver. As long as I can remember, when I was a kid, I was paying $50 a quarter. People are still paying $50 a quarter. That's like 30 years ago. And it's stable, so it's something that people can rely on. It's something that the economy can count on, and it's
I guess we can say that pot's never been a better deal than it is today.
It still hovers around 2,000.
Here's what frustrates me, though. Every day I get 30 to 40 people saying, "Is pot legal here?" All these tourists come in and they go, "Is pot legal here?" Because naturally they want to get some, right? They can't believe it. They're in Vancouver. Everybody seems to be smoking it and talking about it. There's leaves on. There's a dispensary on every block. If you walk in any direction from the ferry terminal, or you're going to see these things. So they asked me, and I said, unfortunately, it's frustrating for a tourist. I said, everybody here is a member of some club or another or knows somebody. I said, but for all these visitors, it's got to be the most frustrating thing to have to go do like you do in a third world country to find weed. What we need is some daring person that's called Tourist Weed Connection. And they only serve people from out of town, right? Because there's a big need for that. Because those people are wandering around looking for a place, right?
All of the unemployed apartment dealers can start up the tourism.
Yeah, it should be called Tourist Weed Connection or something. Just give out cards at the ferry terminal as that big luxury ship comes in.
THC, Tourism High Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you
something
go.
there.
No,
There's
that'll
a
come along pretty quickly, I would have to think.
And you know what we also need more of too? Weed delivery. If you want to be an entrepreneur out there, I would suggest a tourist weed connection, a weed delivery service, bicycling. We have the bike lanes you would not believe in Vancouver at fabulous expense to the taxpayer. So we need definitely more bicycle delivery people to take advantage of these bike lanes.
Use those
the
to
one-stop
deliver weed.
SkyTrain hotbox.
What's that?
The one-stop SkyTrain hotbox.
Yeah, there's jobs there, and I think we're going to have to be more inventive as we get into this recession. People are going to be doing things like that.
Well, THC jobs are permanent jobs.
Yeah, as far as I remember.
And marijuana industry has a lot of potential that isn't even explored yet. So there's already the jobs that are being created with dispensaries and growing it and selling it and marketing it and all this and that. But wait until actually hemp starts taking off and hempcrete houses. Wait until we start seeing medical marijuana research being done and more green, inventive technology. I mean, they know hemp can get radiation out of the earth. So maybe Fukushima's going to come a knocking and say, you guys make a lot of pot. Maybe something can, I don't know. The potential is really unlimited.
You know it's come to its pinnacle of success when it's art. When you can sell a bud as a piece of art, like a painting, like any of that, like a sculpture.
But we're not there yet when they're still spending police resources.
You know what you'll never see
on arresting people.
I found
and
you never find buds suspended in lucite. You know how you see coins and butterflies and all sorts of cool things suspended in lucite cubes? If you drop a bud in, all the resin immediately becomes part of the lucite and just fogs it up, and you can't even see the weed. And there's no way around that. So you'll never see a bud preserved in lucite. So you can't even admire it in perpetuity, right? It's so
No, I think
unique.
I got one in glass.
Glass.
Yeah.
In
glass.
Well, it would have to be contained in glass.
How
You
long
couldn't
would
seal
shatter
it in
last?
glass.
I think. Yeah, not
shatter probably lasts a pretty long time if you store it right.
Depends if it was winterized or not. If it had no wax, then.
So yeah,
It would just go
Karen
red.
Tandy was the head of the DEA in the 10 years ago.
Yeah.
She's now the head of Motorola or
Vice
something
President
like that.
Motorola Communications.
Yeah. Wicked from Wicked to communications. That's the way it goes in America. You go from
scary.
the fucking cops to communication. But now they got rid of the last head of the DEA. She was a nitwit, and now they got a new guy. All right, so he was quoted as saying that pot is probably not as bad as heroin. It's probably
most
not.
likely
He
not
said,
as bad.
Remembering
if
there's
you
no
wa-
good or
if-
bad drugs, right?
He said, if you want me to say that marijuana is not dangerous, I'm not going to say that because he thinks it is. He said, do I think it's as dangerous as heroin? Probably not. I'm not an expert. There you go, really, you're not an expert. You're admitting you're not an expert. But you're the head of the organization that declares what should be Class 1 and Class 2. Your whole drug schedule, you guys deciding. And I'm
Just
not.
like Rona Ambrose.
Here's the thing. You just set up something. Expert. Experts are telling us how to have these stores 300 meters away, can't be near an elementary school, can't be near. All these experts are here. But you know what? Experts are ruining our lives. Because doctors are experts, and they're always telling you, you take this pill, it's this certain thing, you got to trust me. Trust me. Here's the thing about pot and self-dosing, right? They always complain that it's not a regulated commodity. It's not dosage determinant. And I thought, you know what that does? That gives us the power. It's the only medical thing we can do where we have the power. We can dose ourselves until it works. Every other time you have to take the pill. You can't just take these antibiotics as you feel it or want it. You've got to take what that doctor tells you because you don't know any better. But with pot, we've all researched this. We've talked to other people. We have our own personal experience and our own relationship with this. So we know this plant. So we know that a doctor would never know better than we would what we should be taking, right? But unfortunately, in every other aspect of our life, we let these gatekeepers tell us everything that we're going to do in our life and how we're going to do it and what we're going to do, right? Being a cannabis self-practitioner, I guess, or self-medicine man or bush doctor to yourself is probably one of the few things we can do that are empowering, that are medical. Every other medical procedure is somebody telling you that you're going to have to do it, or you're going to have to take it, or you're going to have to get these x-rays, or you're going to do this chemotherapy, and you got to go, well, I guess, because what do I know? You're the expert, right? But when it comes to pot, they're not the experts. They at least gladly say we're not experts, and we can tell them we are experts, and this is what works for us or me, right? And so as long as we can still say that, we still have some power. But I'm telling you, that's why they don't like the pot people. It's all about choice. We're all choice insistent. We don't accept dogma or these authorities or these gatekeepers, and it shows up whether it's politically or medically. We're just not tameable. Yeah. And this is why they're still persecuting us, even at the city level, because we're a thorn in their side. We're annoying. We're not going with the program. We want to do things our own way. The fact that we've all been civilly disobedient shows that we're totally degenerate in their mind, because they think everything should be completely orderly. Yeah. Right? Everything should have rules even if they don't make sense. Right? Everything should be proscribed.
Except they don't have to follow.
But to me,
the
when
rules.
I talk like that about my own city of Vancouver, it sounds like some dystopian Orwellian novel, like some kind of weird Logan's Run where we get to smoke till we're 30 and then they banish us, right? Because we're having too much fun and we're too self-aware, and so all these rules. Like when it gets down to it, I thought there are people in this city that can no longer legally smoke in any environment, in their apartment, outside, at the beach, in my lounge, in your lounge, right? And I mean, if private property of my lounge is not valid, if private property of that guy's tenancy agreement, then really we don't even have any private property rights. So what are you exactly allowed to do in your own place or in your own space, right? Because I like to think that when I'm standing, I own my own space at the beach, right? I mean, who else? I'm a taxpayer. I'm sitting right here on this one spot every now and then. I'm having a joint on sand, right, which is perfectly safe, by the water. Right, so there's no safer place with a strong breeze taking it away, right? And that's a $250 fine. A guy came back and showed me his fine.
Oh my God!
Right, and I thought, really, wow. No, so Vancouver is changing, but it's because we're putting it in the hands of experts.
Yeah, it definitely can be protested in court. It's up to the judge, though. A lot of times the judge will give you a reduced fine of 100 or 150. But in most cases, it sticks. The way around it, that law is for combustibles, right? So it technically is applicable to incense, to anything that's combusting in a park, barbecues even. But barbecues are accepted. So the argument I've taken with the police is I'm allowed to carry 150 grams of cannabis at any time. This person next to me is barbecuing. That person over there is barbecuing. If they really want to push my fucking joint, I'll bring a barbecue and I'll stick 150 grams of weed in there and I'll light it on fire.
Barbecue weed.
And I'll put some skewers on there and I'll roast some vegetables and I'll roast some chicken. And when that 150 grams is done, I'll load another 150, and then I'll encourage 10 of my friends to come here and do the same thing. And they usually back off. They usually go, and I said, so maybe go talk to these people with the barbecues, because that's a combustible. And so is the restaurant over there, and so are the cars.
Yeah, the cars, man. There's just all these cars driving by all over the place, combusting gasoline. It's way more unhealthy to be on a sidewalk than it is to be in here.
They don't say anything if you have a vaporizer, though. If you're sitting there with a vaporizer, they don't say anything. I get challenged, like, I go to Third Beach all the time, and I get challenged left and right.
You did have to walk the line at the Global Marijuana March.
They're very overzealous.
I want to bring up a totally different enforcement. We just met a guy who, get this, the RCMP pulled this guy over when he was riding his bicycle, and he got a ticket. No, he was threatened with a ticket, but the officer let him off. But you can get a ticket for $183 for riding your bicycle without using your hands. If you let go of the handlebars. He said he was riding his bike, just chilling, and the RCMP officer pulls him over and discusses with him how it's illegal to ride your bike without holding the handlebars. Yeah.
So be a good
government is out of control in little ways, and when people say, oh, that's not that big of a deal, bad government is gas chambers or whatever, it's like, no, bad government can be all sorts of things. And when it's like regulating people to death, like even the food trucks. Vancouver's famous food trucks are struggling to make ends meet. Why? Because they can't make the food in their trucks. They have to prepare it elsewhere. They have to pay a commissary to make the food elsewhere and bring it to prepare it. And the fees and fines and permits and regulations are killing them. so they can hardly make it.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. Government just should
Fuck
get out of our
City
lives
Hall.
and let people
We
spend
should
more of
go
their own money.
surround the place.
We're going there tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm tired of these politicians, particular civil politicians, having as much power as they do to do anything. As Mark pointed out earlier, they are certainly not qualified. They're farming it out to experts. Like, what do we need them for? We don't need them at all. We might as well just farm it out to experts. We can fire them if they don't do a good job or they found to be corrupt, because all of the corruption is going on with the politicians. It's not necessarily with the experts. They're
I think
just
they should be ousted.
connected.
They're having the first of 2 info sessions for dispensaries that RSVP'd ahead of time to come and ask some questions tomorrow at City Hall. We're going to be there doing a practice session and a planning session for the second one that they're going to have, which is on the 10th of August, where we want to have as many patients and dispensary staff and owners as we can get, and just citizens who are really pissed about what they're doing here, to come down to City Hall and make as big a fuss about it as we can. I don't know what, in the past I think they used to just oust the bastards, didn't they? Should we take over their offices again?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to respond favorably to that kind of thing, but we should certainly make our voices heard.
Didn't our forefathers do that kind of stuff, though? I mean, if the public servants were out of control, they would...
With it,
it is different times, for sure.
The tasers and the pepper spray.
All of that shit was pre-Patriot Act.
Not to just run away from a stick.
Even though we're in Canada, it still applies.
You should have learned that behavior probably gets us more negative attention than we want. Yeah. So there can be no more taking over of people's offices. It's not the kind of grandstanding that's going to work for us. This is a subtle thing, right? We need people to exercise. We need people to call their local politicians. We need people to talk to city employees, et cetera, but talk to them as equals, friendly, polite, not as adversaries, because that won't work. I need to remind myself of this sometimes, too.
Prison was a good lesson.
Hard not to be mad.
Me, but prison was a good lesson. Every time I went to the prison, it's like I really didn't like the guards who were mean. And when they were mean to us and wouldn't let us hold hands, I really wanted to make a fuss, and I really wanted to make a snarky comment, and I did once or twice. But it didn't win me any favors. Like, it really doesn't. You can't go up to someone and say, hey, screw you, but help me out.
Yeah, you got to be
It unfortunately doesn't work that way. So
I was in court today, so
but I
know
understand
all
you're
about being
upset.
nice to the judge and respectful and all that, for sure.
Oh, I get it. I get it.
The amount of risk a person takes is often proportionate to the amount they have to lose, okay? So it depends how vested in. If you've got children, if you've got a business, if
Agreed.
you've got employees, if you've got people who depend on you, these are circumstances by which we swim in the same dirty water as everyone, and therefore compromises must be made, because what would you rather do, right? Endanger the livelihood of those you care about because of some macho bravado? Or should we try and suck ass and try and make the best out of this situation so we can preserve as much as we can of what we value?
Right.
There you go.
I think we have to treat it like...
Again, I need to think of these things myself every now and then before I blurt something out.
I think we have to treat it like any other global agenda, and that's in the long term. That's in the 50-year. Where do you want this to be in 50 years? And the only way to do that is to start training the youngs, training the teens, training people to be diligent at a younger age instead of the way it is, and changing that social stereotype. Right now we have a media stereotype of cannabis users. And it's a deadbeat. It's somebody that's like, hey, what? And that's not so. Like, cannabis users are extremely educated. We're very articulate, and it's time that we as cannabis users start changing that social view of us, and start changing the media's point of view of us, and forcing them to change it within the media.
The media's nuts.
And through that, we're going to start influencing the young. It's going to start changing the ideology, and you got to treat it like a global agenda. So,
Al, tell us about that weed in the jars that looks so delicious.
What do you want to know?
Why am I so stoned, Al?
Oh, that's just for kids, that weed there.
There are five.
This is purely
Six
recreational for
prodigious
anybody
jars.
under 18.
Yeah, this is youth weed. It's called. So
tell me about
we
that
can
one.
fearmonger too, you know.
Is that why I'm so high? I was smoking kids' weed.
This one's called the King. It's a local cut. It's
It's beautiful looking. That's how bud should be trimmed, by the way.
it's
Your
gorgeous.
guys do the job right.
Well, what I believe in is whatever your flowering time is, you give that 50% of that flowering time just straight water. By the end of that flowering time, you shouldn't have much leaves left on your plant. They should all be dead and falling
pretty
off by
much
then.
drop off. Yeah.
What the problem is a lot of growers, they panic when they start seeing yellow, especially week 4 or week 5, because it's like, holy fuck, I still got like some weeks left. And they panic, and then they start feeding it, and then they give it more bursts of food, and they try to maintain that green longer and longer and longer. And what that's doing is it's just leaving a lot of nitrogen in your plant, and a lot of and nitrogen sustains chlorophyll. Chlorophyll hangs around. It's what's green, and I just believe, that's just my own philosophy. I just believe that by the time a plant is harvested, the leaves should be golden. And the way I harvest is I harvest a plant from the base. I hang it on a coat hanger, put that coat hanger on a line. I line up the plants, and then I don't touch them. I'll go like maybe day 3 or day 4, and I'll clip a couple buds to test, to see where the hydration is.
And your material is always bone
Plus,
dry, too,
at day 3, I like it the best because you have all of those terpenes. The plant's still kind of alive. It's got these beautiful terpenes that go away.
Now
when
tell
it
me why
dries
we
out.
care about terpenes. You once...
Well, terpenes are they're
Magic.
potentiators. They're what give the plant the effect, right? THC is just THC. CBD is CBD. CBN. All of these things. They're not just flavors. They're smells, but they also dictate the character, right? So if your plant is very spicy and very peppery, chances are it's going to make your eyes red and it's going to make you a little drowsy.
Huh.
And it
So
doesn't matter
There's
if it's a broadleaf
Dana
or
Larson.
if it's
Hey,
a fig
Dana.
leaf.
So a terpene would define its characters, like if it's
Di-
Colombian,
di- di-
Hawaiian, all those
directly-
differences.
directly
Because I've always thought if
manipulates
it's all
the
about
outcome.
THC or CBD,
Well,
that
that's part of it for sure, but even low THC and CBD plants, if they're very terpenous, are strong.
I'd like to introduce best-selling author of already a Canadian classic,
There we go.
Green Buds and Hash author Dana
Influencing
Larson,
the youth, this is
and
what I'm
soon to
talking
come out that I hope we'll talk about the Canadian history of cannabis in Canada, a massive 140-page illustrated history of our movement, of everything important in Canadian history about cannabis. And Dana, when will we be expecting that? The wonderful Canadian cannabis history.
Cancel it. No, just wah. No, it's I'm working on that. I've actually got a prototype printout here, but I'm still working on it. But within a month, the ad deadline should be a month. We should be printing just over a month. So that's what I'm aiming at. Hopefully, we'll hit that target.
Where were you 10 years ago?
I was wondering about that, and I was probably just at home or something. I don't know. Like Mark got busted. It was in the afternoon out there, so it would have been morning out here, right? I was probably sleeping or something. I don't know. I was thinking about this today, and I don't really remember where I was. It was less memorable for me than for others, perhaps, but it was the long-term flow that came out of it.
But I happen to remember where I was where you were in our second raid. You were in the birth pool awaiting Lily's arrival. That very moment as we're being raided, Lily's being born.
That was very memorable.
Yeah, so I remember that one quite vividly myself. And now tell us, you got, that's 1997, December 17th, really, because Lily was born after midnight. Yeah. But tell us about the recent publicity you had on the news regarding your book, Green Buds and Hash, which is now helping sales quite substantially.
Yeah, they're selling way faster. I've had a whole bunch of email, people ordering them by mail as well, and I haven't had any word from the Dr. Seuss estate yet, so that's good. No news is good news there. But, our nemesis, the reincarnation of Emily Murphy, Pamela McCall, she's been causing a lot of troubles for people out there, phoning in about dispensaries in other towns. It's weird that someone from Edmonton would take a complaint about dispensaries from somebody calling from Vancouver.
In Winnipeg.
That seems very odd. Winnipeg, and she called Edmonton, too. She was calling about that one. She's called about a lot of them. But yeah, she got me in the news by complaining about my book, and we got on the news. And the reporter's super. I've had him several times. He bought a copy afterwards. I signed one for him, and yeah. Yeah, right on. So, I mean, it's helping sales a lot, and I don't know if we'll hear from Dr. Seuss or not, but hopefully not. Or maybe I'll get some kind of injunction and cute rhyming couplets. We'll see. But so far it's doing good. The book's selling well, and get your copy now before something happens to them.
Now, a lot of people who bought the Green Buds and Hash and love it and tell their friends and other people coming. That's how its word of mouth is going. But what other projects have you got coming? And can you regale us with some of your original work that might appear in a future one? Because you've got other poems coming that are parodies of classics too, don't you?
Yeah, I don't know about regaling anybody right now, but I got a bunch of stuff coming out. I mean, I wrote my book Harry Pothead many years ago. That'll be in the 4th printing coming out soon. Very soon. It's all ready to go, and it'll look beautiful. And then I've got a bunch of other fairy tale books that I'm trying to do, like Little Green Riding Hood and Jack and the Hemp Stalk and The Pie-Eyed Piper. That one was printed in Cannabis Culture before, and that's actually one of my favorites. So I'm working on a bunch of those, and I want to do them all in the same little I Can Toke It All By Myself bong hitter book format that we did for the Dr. Seuss one. So it'll be a nice collection, but it'll take me a little while. But the only one I'm worried about any legal thing is the Dr. Seuss one. The rest of them are all public domain fairy tales that will be fine and should be a lot of fun. So yeah, then there's a history book as well that's coming out soon. So a lot of stuff's going. Forget all this selling weed stuff. The real money's in book publishing, right? We know that. So yeah, there you go.
Now, on that note, though, can you tell us what's happening with the dispensaries that you and Dory are responsible for? Like, what's the status of the one on Thurlow and the one that...
I didn't know I was going to be the interviewee here for the show, but that's all good. Lots to talk about. Yeah, well, we've got at the Vancouver Dispensary Society, we were the 3rd dispensary to open in the city. The first one to call ourselves a dispensary. Before that, it was more the Compassion Club term was used. We've been open on East Hastings for 7 years now, and we've been open in the West End for, 5 years? Is that right? Yeah, 5 years. And but both of our dispensaries go against these new bylaws, only because we're too close to schools and community centers, right? So in the West End, we're like 280 meters or something from a school. And in the East Hastings one, the Raycam Community Center is just a half a block away. So we're not going to get a license, but we might be able to appeal it and have the appeal process work for us. We've got a lot of friends at Raycam, certainly. A lot of them like us and are happy we're there, but not all of them are cannabis friendly, and I'm not quite sure who's got the majority there on that. But I've been talking to those guys. I'm feeling a little more optimistic now after talking to a few folks at Raycam and seeing the support that we do have there among some people. And we've been good neighbors. We've been there a long time. It seems odd to me we'd have to leave now that dispensaries are more legal in Vancouver. We have to go when they were not legal at all. It was cool to be there. Something weird about that, right? But we're going to struggle to stay there. You know, it's very hard finding another place in the city right now. It's a huge game of musical chairs with 100 people out there all looking for new spots. So we're doubled down on our current locations, and hopefully we can make friends and convince everybody to let us stay there. But if not, then I don't know. If anybody got a place to rent, let me know.
Yeah, you guys.
But that's where we're at. That's where we're at right now.
I'll sleep in the backyard. You guys can have my house.
Oh, okay.
Less
well,
regulations.
cool. Okay, hear that, Dory? We got to back up.
Lounge. You can have a vapor lounge in your house.
No, I know. Yeah, you can't do that. And the vapor lounge rules that they've been talking about for years and years now, this kind of thing, and threatening to shut this place down for a long time, back and forth. That's all very worrisome and kind of ridiculous to me that we're in a city where parents can drink with their kids. The city even sponsors all ages beer gardens. You know, they got a supervised injection site for hard drug users, which they should. Breweries are able to share alcohol and make lounges and everything. So that is an issue that I'm quite worried about, and I think that dispensaries should all have lounges next to them, really. It should almost be mandatory to stop people. They don't want you smoking on the street or whatever and doing it in public, so give us a place where we can do it safely and in private.
Well, there's got to be a way that people can argue for the civil right, because it's civilly not acceptable to sit in an apartment, medicate. Maybe you got a baby with asthma in the apartment next to them, or elderly people. Use that as the excuse.
Or you get just kicked out of your apartment.
Well, that's what I'm saying. These places provide a location that users don't have to be a burden to their neighbor, a burden to the roommate, a burden to people that aren't ready to accept it. Because we're just at the beginning of social acceptance, right?
No,
so
absolutely.
we still have to be a little bit polite. We still have to tiptoe around a lot of people.
Is there anything on the legal
but
front that's going on?
I think these facilities provide that out, so that you're not being intrusive to your neighbor or to somebody around you.
Something that they don't even think about. You know, the Pride Parade is here this weekend, and it's asking all participants to sign a political manifesto of sorts saying that transgendered people are entitled to the same rights as everyone else is, right? And I'm thinking, well, you know, here we are asking for acceptance of their very essence, right? Our very essence is that we, in our freedom of expression as citizens of the cannabis culture, we blow smoke. That's what we do. That's our form of expression. That's a universal language that we all understand. And none of it. So when they say you're putting your employees at risk by having marijuana smoke around them, you have to answer no. These were people who had a marijuana lifestyle and found a job that will tolerate and accommodate them in a way no one else will. Yeah. Right? So if you want an inclusive society where everybody of every culture can feel like they can get employment, like they're entitled to be respected as a citizen, you can't be telling people they can't commune in a lounge and you can't work for people that let you do your own thing. That's like telling a Rasta man you can come to work but don't bring your dreads. Right? Why would you do that? You're hiring him with his dreads for a reason, right? Or he's got that look, that bad, whatever. Yeah. And I'm thinking that we're like that. I mean, so the idea that they're protecting our health by putting us all on the unemployment list and closing businesses and disrupting our lives is really perverse.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
that's something that at some point I think they're going to have to reckon with.
And they promised us they wouldn't use the anti-vape laws against us at City Hall. Jeremiah and I, we got a promise from Penny Balin that they weren't going to use that against us.
Yeah, they're
all that
liars.
worth.
Don't trust Dr. Penny.
Well, and that shows she's not a pot smoker, too.
Oh, absolutely not.
And the thing is that that's what, unfortunately, we need more people in civil service, more pot smokers. Now, you can see it in the engineering. You can see it at the fire department. Those guys are all chill. Every time I meet a lot of city workers, they tell me how awesome, you know, my work has been and stuff like that. Yeah. So there are people who smoke a lot of pot, and they can be there for us if we ever need them.
She's deficient.
But I think basically that somebody has hired a bunch of out-of-towners who have no touch, no feeling, and they did that deliberately. They don't want anybody who has any natural sympathies with the people who live here.
Yeah, because they wouldn't do what they're doing.
Because if you have natural sympathies, you're gonna obstruct or move things in that direction. So by getting a guy from Chicago and people from other places who have no connection to this community and are listening only to the elites that they get to see, then this is what you get: a cold, indifferent, hostile attitude towards the own people in Vancouver, the elected Vision Vancouver, who, like I say, are all likely overwhelmed, and are just putting people in charge of decisions they don't want to answer to or make decisions because they don't have the time.
And Burnaby allows it. We've got to follow the Burnaby model for vapor lounges now, right? Because Burnaby went back on it. They passed a law banning smoking in vapor lounges and stuff, and then they changed their mind, right? So we can do that here too. Do they have they don't have any cannabis lounges, but they do have hookah lounges though, right? I think because nobody's tried yet. I think that's. Nobody's.
RCMP.
But there was the lounge. Yeah, maybe it's RC. Maybe they'd bust them for the marijuana part, but not the smoking part. But I don't know. I think.
The RCMP always raid every place.
No, they don't raid every place. Maple Ridge has had a dispensary for years. Plenty of cities. Right? Yeah, plenty of cities. It depends. I mean, the RCMP are worse and harder, but it depends on where area you are. A lot of RCMP have allowed dispensaries to operate in their areas. They're not always the same. Oh. I'd be more nervous in RCMP jurisdiction typically, but a lot depends on the local cops. But Maple Ridge has been open like 5 years or something, right? They've been open, and there's been other ones in RCMP territory too. So it's not always the case.
A lot of it depends on if they get a complaint. If they get a complaint, then
you get Pamela McCall calling from Pamela 3 McCall provinces away.
Maple Ridge, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm tired of Pam from Sam. I am.
Yeah, but we've got to be careful not to aggravate her. That Matt Murnaugh trick that was on Pot TV, like where he hoaxed her and pretended to be her ally. That, first of all, wasted my time. I don't know why I need to listen to 20 minutes of Matt Murnaugh setting up a bad prank. But secondly, though, I actually started feeling sorry for her. I'm actually grateful I've never debated her or been in her presence. Yeah, she wasn't. And not only that, Matt Murnaugh got all kind of weird Avenger-like, and yet all he really had on her was that you don't have 3 people on your board of directors or something, right? Now, we know Pam McCall is hates us and is out to get us, but in a way she provides a wonderful foil. She's very, a very kind of like dark, villainous person if you let her do her thing. She's mean-spirited. She hates the sick and dying. And people don't agree with her. She's a one-person band for a reason.
Yeah, you
right?
can literally just let
we
her
should
go
never
off and she
create
makes
an
herself
environment
look
where
bad.
we can be
There's no
sympathetic
need
to her. When I watch Matt Murnaugh raving on, I started feeling sorry for her. Right? Also, I felt like I was used myself and juked by his sort of a false hoax thing. Because why didn't he ask her in a clever way about, what do you say to the science that shows that people benefit epileptically, in this way? Do you think those scientists are like bought off by the pot lobby? Like, you could have said it like that and have her say, yes, I think they're under delusion or whatever, or they're getting money or something. You just deliver sweet reason to her in a sympathetic voice. He had a great opportunity. He fooled her on. Why don't you take her seriously and ask her some questions where we can all get educated, right? Instead, he just mocks her, and then she realizes she's been used, and then she gets angry. Well, you don't need Pamela McCall angry her. My God.
I think she's inevitably always angry. But it kind of reminds me of the Hogan's Hero episode where they get rid of Colonel Clink, and then somebody really bad comes in. And in a sense, I thought Dana should have probably sued her for slander when he was on the air with her. Some of the stuff she was saying was certainly untrue and slanderous.
I am trying to turn Canada into a narco state also.
Yeah. And you're working with a lot of Hell's Angels and stuff as well, I know.
I wonder if Pam listens to music.
Pam.
I think she should. I think she should listen
Yeah,
to music. She might just chill the fuck out a little bit.
Any songs in particular, Al?
No songs
Any
with
song.
drugs
Now,
or smoking.
All songs are beautiful.
She
No
actually
sex.
published a version of the night before Christmas, which edits out the pipe smoking. Is that what she did?
It's a public domain book, right? So anybody can publish it or write or do it in their own way.
Yeah.
She took it, edited out all the pipe references, and then republished it under her own thing. But it just says 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, so she's kind of... The American Public Library Association condemned her for doing that, saying she's denying people the author's actual voice. Because kids aren't going to be like, oh, Santa Claus smokes a pipe, therefore I'm going to... Like, do we have epidemics of kids climbing down chimneys and getting killed in chimneys or like anything like that? Or kids trying to, ride reindeer around and stuff? Like... It's a bit ridiculous, obviously, but and then she comes after me. But I'm actually creating a new thing. I'm not stealing somebody else's thing and then directing it. But whatever, that's her thing. But yeah, that's that. What happened to her? Her dad burned down her house when she was a kid with a cigarette, and so she grew up justifiably unhappy with tobacco. Was an anti-tobacco activist. And then she met Sam, Sam US, and they convinced her that marijuana is the new tobacco. That it's too late with tobacco, but that they don't want big marijuana. And, with tobacco, doctors told us it was cool and that it was good. And they had pictures of doctors smoking cigarettes. And now we know it's really bad. And same thing with pot. It's all these lies from big marijuana trying to convince our kids that it's really good for them and it's a medicine when really it's just like tobacco. And so that's her story, how she got there, right? From irresponsible dad. And, of course, the irony is if her dad had been smoking a joint instead of a cigarette, that joint would have gone out when he dropped it. It wouldn't have started a house fire. Everyone would have been a lot better off. So the lesson is don't smoke tobacco, smoke joints.
I feel like I just heard the backstory to the Grinch.
I learned more in 30 seconds of that than a half hour of Matt Murnaugh hoaxing her, right? Now, in a way, I feel even sorrier for her.
Yeah.
And that she's just a poor, misanthropic, misunderstood, tortured woman.
It is a real Grinch stole Christmas story.
What she's doing is good.
No, she provides a good foil because she's not rational, but she's hurtful and hateful.
So these guys are all just whipped up on cake.
All whipped up on cake.
All whipped up on cake.
She wants Santa's pipe. She took away Santa's pipe. Now she wants your bong, is what the story is there.
No.
That's a great headline.
We shall overcome. Yeah, it's bizarre when I look around the news in the cannabis world. The floodgate that is open for shit to go wrong now. You go, uh-oh. What are they doing now? Oh, no. Oh,
well,
no.
Canada has 25 spy bases around the world, not the 3 they're telling us, according to Anonymous, who are going to leak some more fun stuff out. See, now here's the thing, they go after Edward Snowden and Anonymous, but these are our heroes. These are the people that are standing up for democracy and freedom of information, right? While the state uses every sneaky, dirty means to oppress us, surveil us, monitor us, and control us, right?
Well, Anonymous promised this morning that they're going to release text messages they have, the real reason why John Baird quit government. Maybe Harper called the election for that reason. Like, he's going to call it on Sunday. He's meeting with the Governor General to ask for Parliament to be dissolved. So, anyway, boring Canadian politics. But I think they are scared because...
Maybe he'll be dissolved by accident.
Oops, he just fades away.
All right.
Just like the Wicked Witch and the
some
Wizard of
water
Oz.
gets on him or something. And he goes,
Like that. It's like, no, I only live on oil. Water and oil don't mix.
Well, shit's going to hit the fan here, so everybody get out and vote. Get rid of Harper. That's the plan. Get rid of Harper.
Well, we have come a long way in the 10 years since Marc got busted for that. You know, it's been a long time. And 10 years ago, you guys were doing Dekind about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So you were in jail 10 years ago then. Or waiting. You were actually in jail then 10 years ago.
By then I was in court. It was 3 years in court.
And now you got more weed shops than anybody else in Canada. So that's good. Well, for now you do. Yeah, no, I was pointing at them both over there, yeah. Oh, right, yeah. But so, you know, how things change in a positive way. And David Malcolm Levine was in jail for a while, and now the cops are bringing him when he got robbed. But the cops brought him his cannabis back and give it back to him. Dave was online being like, we haven't made what progress in the last 10 years? And I'm like, Dave, like, they gave you your weed back. They gave you your hash back. The same cops that put you in jail. Things aren't perfect, but that is progress. That is definitely progress when the cops give you your pot back and guard your weed shop for you. Right? It's not perfect, but that's progress. Yes, okay.
And I don't know. All these years, marijuana has prevailed. Right? It will always prevail. So all the over-regulation in Colorado and all these other places, it's going to fall away to a more reasonable place at some point because that's kind of the way it is, right? So they'll over-regulate, try to have their industries find out that, knowing the percentages doesn't matter. That industry's going to go out of business. Somebody will sue them, right?
Well, I read this interesting article in the New York Times, actually. It was written in an opinion piece by the fellow who wrote that book, Stoned, A Doctor's Case for Medical Marijuana, I believe it's called. And he's been doing a lot of interviews. But the gist of this article, and again, I shared it on Twitter, and I try and share a lot of commentary about a lot of issues, so please, I'm going to plug it. Go to twitter.com/Jodie Emery, because this New York Times article is really interesting. It was saying how medical marijuana dispensaries and medical marijuana healthcare could actually change the entire healthcare system. So I was like, that's really interesting. Let's look into this. And so basically what he observed was that, he dealt with palliative care patients, so people who are really actually dying, and they're on pills a lot of the time, pain pills, all sorts of medications. And he said what he found interesting was that when he observed these patients coming to dispensaries, that they weren't just showing up to see the doctor, to get a script, to go to the pharmacy, to get their pills and go home. They were coming there and meeting fellow patients and talking. They were talking about what worked for them, what didn't work for them. They're sharing their stories of success and failure. And what really stood out in this doctor's mind was a patient, an older lady, who said, I'm in control. And for someone who's dying and dependent on medicines and all this stuff, I'm in control of my dose. I can smoke it when I want to. I can do what I want. I can consume a cookie. Cannabis is within my control. It's a medicine, and it works, but it's in my control. And for someone who's sick or dying, that's really, really important. So he said that could be applied to all healthcare. Why is the healthcare system so impersonal? Why do you go to a clinic and you sit there and you don't talk to anybody and nobody there knows anything, and you go into a room with a doctor and you silently speak and you leave? Why aren't places more inclusive? And that dispensaries and medical marijuana seem to be setting an example of just sharing information and healing through that. And so that says to me, man, in 10 years, maybe we'll all be sitting here going, with our cannabinoid IV drips if we're sick or whatever. We'll just be saying, look at all the ways that we've been able to use cannabis to save ourselves and change the world. And I know it seems kind of crazy, but the tree of life, Like, I don't know. The New York Times also wrote about cannabis. It's hempcrete. Hemp can save the world. Don't you believe? But it is true. You know, hemp really can help save the world.
Yeah, well said.
Hempcrete save the environment. Like, that's the number one issue for the future. As LNG and oil and gas keep getting tapped into, as these dinosaur industries continue to slug along, we need an alternative that can actually reduce the pollution. Nobody's even, they're talking about stopping stuff to prevent it from getting worse. Let's talk about reversing it, how about? Why not make some gigantic hemp fields all across this country and suck that out of the air? I don't know, there's so much potential. And the CBD oil, the medicine, there's so much medicinal potential. It heals bones, it does everything. I know we all know this, but goodness gracious, the world needs to know that people went to prison not just for an ordinary plant even, but for something that can and hopefully will save the world if we keep pushing. And I know we will, because nobody here is a quitter. 10 years later, screw you, Tandy, we're still here.
No, it's a great place to be. I gotta say, I'm pretty lucky to be here. All these years, you don't quit a job this cool. And you do your best not to fuck it up. Hey, so if you got a good job out there, people, listen, don't fuck it up.
And I gotta say thank you to Greg for being there for me all that time too, that Marc was gone. I mean, everybody deserves thanks. Again, I can't thank everyone enough. But every Thursday you film my show with me and watch me go through all the stuff, all the cards, all the photos, all the emotions, all the ups and downs, the news. That was a long haul, and it kind of seems like an old memory in a way. But
it does seem faded a bit, eh?
I guess it was almost a year ago. When did you get out? August 12th. So August 12th last year is when he actually came back to Canada. What? So it hasn't even...
What?
Has it not even been a year then?
Another anniversary party coming right up.
It hasn't been a year since Marc's been out. Oh, jeez, a lot's happened.
Man, oh man, that seems like forever ago.
Seems like forever ago. A lot's happened.
Wow.
Seems like you never left.
It really does. It really does in that respect. Well, we're blessed to be able to have remained in this building, so not much changed. I think for all of us involved in all that turmoil of all the raid and all the other stuff,
and we're selling seeds again together down the main floor, just like old times, in the exact same spot.
Yeah.
Right, that we got arrested. In fact, you sat today in the very same spot you were arrested 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right, so deja vu.
Just wearing the same shirt.
Yes, as a tribute to that, actually. That's kind of cool.
As a tribute.
Did you mention that already? Because that's kind of neat. Yeah, you told me that this morning. I'm wearing the same shirt we got busted.
So.
Oh, you're serious? I thought you were just. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is the very shirt that went to jail that day. But.
And hasn't been washed since.
Yeah. They had to write it down too. What it said. No. They had to write down. Well, I don't know if I should share this. I wear underwear that have marijuana leaves on them every day, and always have. Right, so they had to write that down too when they check off what it is. Description. They just wrote leaves on it with a leaf on it. But I'm blessed, and like I say, it was fairly easy to go through all of that. And like I say, and Marc said, our hands were tied. There wasn't much we could do. We couldn't get out of it, so we had to go with the flow. But we were still be able to be here. That made a big difference, right? And, you know, when we were facing the hard time before it all came down, we faced it together, and it was in our face, too. Like, it's not like you went and hid away and waited for court and, right, I don't know what's going to happen. You're here every day, and people were talking about you getting extradited, and you're going, it made it a whole lot easier, that's for sure. And blessed in that respect, right? So, and from my heart, thanks to all the people. Yeah, we're still here and doing well.
It was a stressful 10 years insofar as, you know, scraping for money or bail or lawyers or, you know, wondering when the inevitable day was coming and stuff. Yeah, and then the travel expenses and just the rigors of Jodie traveling all that time and the monotony that jail can be or prison can be and moving around to Sixtham. But I overall have no trauma or negative feelings, and as time goes by, I tend to sentimentalize all things in the past. So I kind of fondly look back on it for all the lessons I learned, and there's nothing
Yeah.
more humbling in a way than a prison, even insofar as I was treated very well by inmates, and I rarely heard an unkind word, which isn't probably the typical experience, but it still reminded me very much of my humanity and the humanity of those around me, including the guards, including the director of prisons.
Yeah.
I often felt sorry for all of them because they're going to have to spend the best years of their life doing this job for $21 an hour, all because they want to get a pension. They want to be able to, after 25 years, be able to retire at 50 and live off a nice government pension, and that's their fantasy. And I thought, that's very sad.
Very sad.
Right? And a lot of the inmates would spend the same time with them for, crimes. Even if there shouldn't be a drug law, some of these people are criminally minded. They wanted to game the system, and they knew it was against the law, and they were taking a chance, and then they got caught, and bad things occur, right? So, but overall, I felt sorry because a lot of the inmates didn't have a father in their life growing up. A lot of them came from a very chaotic background. I always reflected on my wonderful parents that I had that gave me such stability that a lot of these kids don't have in prison. I call them kids. Most were younger than me, but.
Well, I gotta say they were lucky to have you. Really, like they were for sure. Like given that you had no choice, it helped that.
Well,
system.
they were
And
responsive.
Chris was right in his assumption. All right.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun
really,
too
I'm
because the
sure of
reason
it.
that they held me in such high regard is because they knew that push come to shove, I could get something done. Like when our friend Daniel got MRSA, a massive swelling in his knee, and I told Jodie, just tell people to call this prison. Right? 3 hours later, they had 3 doctors and an ambulance to take him to hospital. They told him to come back, and they'll look at it in 4 days if it doesn't get better. And then when I told Jodie, and she put it on Twitter, all of a sudden, outside agitation, things happen fast, right? And there was other times like that, the 1,000 books that arrived for all the Hispanic guys. Well, needless to say, I was very much ingratiated to all the Hispanic guys, right? Who couldn't believe that some white English-speaking guy even gave a shit about them, right? And that there were other people in the real world who didn't know them who would send them hundreds of books just because.
And who didn't want anything in return.
And there's
Right, which is probably not even allowed.
And there's this whole private prison thing too, because I think it's funny. They wanted to screw Mark over and send him to a really terrible place, so they did. D. Ray James in Georgia was awful. It was really awful, but the benefit of that was that is a dark, shadowy place. Mark was a spotlight. And so on an old typewriter, he typed out pages of blogs about all the horrible things that were happening in this for-profit private prison run by Geo Group. And we had an activist named Catherine who typed up every page because I had so much to do. She was typing up every blog that he wrote off a typewriter and mailed to her. And we got that online. And that got the Geo Group upset because instead of Mark, suffering in a dark hole, attention was being put on him. A provincial representative came and flew down and visited Mark with me. So when they have a government official visit, they got nervous. They didn't like
that. Couldn't last, so they banned me from typewriters. Right, they're in the library. Anybody's supposed to use them. Previously, I did everyone's legal work on typewriter, but now I couldn't go near a typewriter because I was clearly using it for subversive means. They said so.
So what they did in order to punish him for all that was that they sent him to a more comfortable prison. Like there is actually a ranking website for prisons, like hotel reviews, but for prisons. I know, I had to learn all this. But Yazoo Prison is actually one of the better prisons to be in. So there's that. I mean, they took Mark out of the private prison alone, put him on a Geo Group bus by himself, and traveled him out of there, which cost them money, which they don't usually do for anybody or anything. But they needed to silence him and stop him from complaining about really terrible things happening to people so that they wouldn't get in trouble.
And it worked because they sent me to a properly run prison where I was so grateful to be. I begged them not to transfer me eventually, right? I said, please do not send me because I'll go to an immigrant prison again, and those places aren't good, I would tell them. And I didn't cause trouble, and so they said, okay, Emery, you can stay. Right.
Mark did go to solitary confinement. There's all sorts of other there's a lot of little things that were rough about it all, but overall we're here.
For rock and roll, so.
That's true. That's right. Wow. So if you guys are interested, we do have all of Mark's old blogs and even my old shows, the Jodie Emery show. I used to do it every week. So see what I was saying
they're
this
still
time
all out
last
there.
year,
Cannabis Warriors on YouTube, and it has a lot of on-the-day footage
That's
of,
right.
of the raid and what was going
Cannabis
on.
Cannabis
Warriors.
Warriors,
Please
yeah.
packing
What was
the
that
place
fellow's
up.
name that took that?
Daniel.
Daniel, that's right.
Go-to film that. And also CBC made that
Thinking
great
about you,
film.
Daniel.
CBC, The Prince of Pot, the U.S. versus Marc Emery, just to get the story of how that all unfolded. There's a lot of news. Yeah, there's lots of news.
I love seeing Mark in the headlines, even from prison. Like they'd get commentaries on from stories going on in the press, and it was like, wow, he's still getting more press than any other activist in Canada from a jail cell. It was always
Every letter I sent out got published in newspapers. You want to just send them 11 in total, but every letter I sent to a newspaper got published. Right? In the real world, you get like 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10. But when you're in prison like that, and nobody hears from you too often, then you can get in the paper.
That's pretty good. Well, as everybody can see, we're still all alive and well. Most.
Well, except for one,
Except
Michelle.
for
but
one, yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, I had to say that because we
course.
take our mortality for granted, but we're all getting older and we're all going to disappear one day. So appreciate everybody while you can, and try and keep the rancor and acrimony down when these sensitive times. We need to stick together.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky because these straight people are fucking crooked. Hey, they're crooked and corrupt, and they don't know what they're doing. So it's like fucking a jittery guy with a shotgun around you. You don't know. All of a sudden, it's going to go off.
I feel there should be a little voiceover. Voices of commentary do not necessarily reflect the ownership of this organization and this building and this.
So, we're thrilled that you could tune in and join us for today, and we're glad that we're still here, not in a paddy wagon or handcuffed or
Time will tell, people.
All of our friends at the moment are safe, but it's still a fight, and we're going to continue. It's cannabis culture, after all. So thanks to all our friends for joining us here in the studio today. We're here on the second floor of the BCMP Vapor Lounge, so come on down and have some civil disobedience, secondhand civil disobedience a lot of the time. But this place is open 7 days a week. Marc's and Jodie's store open 7 days a week. We're selling seeds in the back. Urban Shamans there with Chris Bennett. Check out the dispensary.
And they made Salvia Divinorum
Dana's
illegal,
stuff.
by the way. They made Salvia Divinorum illegal, so Chris Bennett's Urban
They
Shaman has a sale half
pounced
price.
on another
get it
plant.
while you can.
Yeah, don't tell them. If you're doing stuff, don't say you feel good. That's what they don't like.
Nope.
Right.
So no, I'm
Coca
okay.
leaf might be getting
Yeah,
scarce, so get your
no.
Coca leaf while you can.
No euphoria. So on and on it goes. Thanks to Rose for being with us early in the show. Dawn and Carol and Ann and Ryan. I see Sativa over there.
And Ryan has the really great
There's
Annihilator
Jade
bud.
and John B. Mitch, how are you? Carly and Tim and Dory. Who else is there? Ian. Malmo was in the house. McMahon.
Carly, you remind me of like in the 1930s there was a woman who played Jane of the Jungle. You look just like what she would look like in an idealized kind of way, right? So I had to say that. Men love to blurt out their compliments no matter how unwelcome, so there, I've done that.
So yeah, thanks to Jeremiah too and Marc and Jodie for being here.
And I hope, I really hope people will come to Vancouver and check out what we've got going on here. Because, a lot of activism
It's
in
pretty
America
fucking cool.
really got a lot of kickstart funds and seeds and things from this very building and this very community. And that's really exciting. I love that connectedness that we know that there's people we've never met, but they planted those seeds that came out of that office, and you guys pressed those seeds to make sure they were viable still. There's all sorts of hands on all of that work, and there's no way to thank everybody. But I hope if you enjoy Cannabis Culture and Pot TV, we are an online media organization, and media doesn't make money, that's for sure. But our store downstairs, if you want to come visit us, it's like a traveling place to come and join, be in this location. the city of Vancouver has a story today where they're allowing brewery lounges so that you can go and lounge at a brewery and not just buy what the brewery sells, but also buy other liquor from other companies that lounge gets to sell.
They're really opening up the booze.
They're opening up the booze a lot in this
Yeah.
city. So I'm just going to say we love our lounge. Don't take it away. And thanks to the DEA, we have the lounge concept because that really did come out of the loss of the seat office. So, crisis opportunity, make the most of what you got. So come down to visit us.
Thanks to the DEA, but they're not experts.
No.
Thanks to Dana, too, for being here and all the good work you do, brother. And Al, the alchemist, we missed Kush Queen today.
Thanks to all of you guys for pioneering cannabis activism in Canada. And really, yay! That's heavy shit.
Yeah. I learned how to roll joints on Cannabis Culture magazine, watching people like Dana Larson tripping through the forest. I don't know.
We got some shit going down over there.
Hey, we're out.
We're out.
It's back in.
Oh, it's just in-house.
And now we're back. And then we're going to go. But sorry to the chat. Dedicated chat people who come and join the show all the time. We totally ignored you.
We'll read it later. I always read
Yeah,
it later.
we'll see. We appreciate. So yeah, thanks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week, as always. I'm Marijuana Man. Peace and pot.
Yeah.